make a tutorial video about how to make the donut. So this is going to be all the modeling of the donut and the icing, and then we'll move on to like texturing on the next video. So first off, press X. That will delete the default cube, and then we're going to add our mesh, which is going to be a torus. And then you're going to get this little option box down here, and if you don't use it when you create a shape like this, then it disappears and you never see it again. So you have to start all over. So add mesh torus, here it is. We're going to make it like real size, so you make it like 15 centimeters or something. And then let's just zoom in, make sure it's right. And I reckon something like that is looking pretty good. Okay, so we're done. So take your object, right click, make it smooth, and then we're going to go where this little kind of spanner thing is, and that's all of the modifiers. And the modifier, we're going to make it a subdivision surface, and that's going to make everything smooth. Okay, right. Problem is the donut is too perfect, so what we're going to do is mess it up. So we are going to grab faces and we're going to move them. You can press G to move really quickly, but you can see we're just moving that individual one, and we want to move like a bunch of them to kind of deform it. So I'm going to turn on this button, proportional editing, and then I'm going to move it now. I'm going to move it, but it's moving too many, and that's because of this option box. The proportional size is 1, and we're going to make it less. You can see how much it changes the model. So let's make it like that much. That looks good. And now I'm just going to go around and just break it up a bit over the top. Just going to make it less perfect, because donuts don't look perfect. So that's kind of cool, and that looks good to me. And the final thing I want to do is I want to put like a ridge in the middle. So I want to grab these center points here, and if you press Alt, you can grab them all. Okay, and turn off proportional editing. If we don't, we'll scale everything, but I'm going to take that off, and then I'm going to press S to scale and just bring them in like that. You don't have to press S, you can just go here to the scale button and grab that outer ring and do the same difference. Right, modeling of our donut is done. Okay, it's up here, torus 01. I'm going to double click on it and just call it something, donut. Okay, now we're going to make the icing. The icing is a little bit more complicated, and so what we're going to do is, rather than kind of model that totally, we are going to use a portion of this. So I'm going to look at the side by pressing on this thing, and I want to grab like a bunch of these, and I think maybe these top ones up here. The problem is, if I look around, I've only grabbed the front, so that's a bit of a problem. So what we want to do is turn on X-ray, and then when we grab it, we'll grab everything. Make sure you grab the whole lot, which in this case I have. Go back to this mode, turn off X-ray, and then go to Mesh, Duplicate, and you can see that we've got the mesh there. And then now this is, you can see up here that it's still part of the same object, so we want to go Mesh and Separate, which is, I struggle to find this, but it's here, Separate. And now go back to object mode, we can see that we've got this, which is donut 01, and this one, which is donut. So we're going to take this and we're going to rename it icing, and now we're going to do some of the modeling on it. So let's move it back into position, and the first problem that I'm sure you're all noticing is that it's a bit flat, and we need to make it kind of have some substance. So we're going to use another modifier, and the modifier is solidify. And there you can instantly see it's had an effect. But the problem is that the edge is quite sharp, and that's because of the order. The order of this is, it should be first and then we subdivide it, and then you'll see it smooths it out. You might have a different system, you might have arrows that you can use to change the order. Press those instead. Okay, so this is looking good, but it's probably too small, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, and you can make it go out the other way as well. So but I reckon this is looking good, and I'm just going to bring it up like that, and that looks good. Okay, The problem is that it's now too perfect, and so we need to change this. So I'm going to grab the edge tool and start grabbing some of these, and I'm just going to use G again and just move these down. You're going to get some little weird bits of kind of stuff coming through, and that's because we're just going through the geometry a little bit. So just move it out a bit and take some of these and do the same, and it will kind of work. Again, you can turn on your proportional editing, and this will move everything at the same time. And that's looking good. And we're just trying to kind of create some disorder out of chaos here, or some disorder out of order, as it were. And that's kind of looking all right. I think the proportional editing is really helping, and that's cool. The thing is that what we need some sort of drips as well. So I'm just going to make sure this doesn't go through into the donut itself. And just bring this down a bit. And this one looks a bit perfect. I'm going to grab a whole bunch of them. And this is, so I'm just pulling it away from the donut a little bit. We can fix some of these later when we do sculpting, but it's better to get them right here. Looks good. This one's coming out a bit, and yeah, that's looking good. Okay, so what we're going to do is create some drips. So I'm going to grab one of these, and I'm going to press extrude, but I'm just going to press the letter E, and E will extrude. If it looks a bit blocky here, that's because the levels viewport is not enough subdivisions. And you can see it's a little bit out, so just use G to move it in. And okay, and do a little one like that. And so my machine is running a little bit slow because I'm doing the screen recording at the same time, so it's a bit frustrating. So this is looking good. And then don't forget the middle. Just make sure they're kind of relatively straight. And I'm going to do a whole bunch. Check what it looks like. Oh, that looks absolutely terrible. So I'm going to just sort of move that back into place. So you don't have to spend too long on this, just kind of like try and get it so it's looking roughly okay. It's not looking too bad. You can even grab individual vertices to kind of like smooth out some of these. That looks good. And you know, you're going to have to sort of like use your creative judgment on this one to see what it's going to look like. And I am pretty happy with this so far. And remember, we're not going to see all sides of this, but try and do like a decent job. So that looks okay to me. I'm going to put like an extra one here to kind of create some randomness. Just because it looks a bit ordered. I mean, this is sort of a real judgment call, but... And then I'm going to create one here. Okay, so I'm kind of pretty happy with that. And once you're done with that, what we want to do is we want to do some sculpting, and sculpting requires geometry. And at the moment, we haven't got a huge amount. So what we're going to do is I'm going to apply the solidify. So just click on here, go apply, and then I'm going to apply the subdivision. And what we're going to get is like a lot of geometry. So a very high-res model. But we can take that into sculpting. So we flip into the sculpting tab up here, and we can see our model. If you want to change the way that this looks, you can click on this little arrow, and you can change this something called matte cap, and I'm going to change mine to this because I find it easier to view things. Then you're going to have a brush and all of these tools. Play around with them. They all do different things. The first one is a really simple drawing one, and it will just draw on your model like this. So I'll just press F to make the brush bigger. And then what we're doing is just sort of trying to give some weight to the icing, so it looks like it's kind of collected at the bottom where it's been dripped on. And do this, and you know, it's going to look a little bit rough. I'll show you how to smooth it out in a minute. That's good. Okay, and again, don't forget the middle. Quite tempting to forget it, but it's again, I'm just sort of doing it on the edge really, and the edge will just, because that's sort of where the icing collects, and also we want to kind of fix some of the little edges here to make them look a bit more realistic. So you can see it's sort of starting to look a little bit more like icing. There we go. I think I might have done all of it, but I don't know. And that looks good. Okay, so now we've got this and it looks kind of relatively good, but I just want to sort of slightly rough up the whole part of it. So I'm just going to kind of go quite far away, and I'm going to put my brush down a little bit, the strength. Just sort of muck it up a bit. To kind of, and if you press shift you can go the other way, and just to kind of create a little bit of randomness. And then I'm going to use this thing called clay strips, and clay strips is quite good. So it sort of creates, let me just Control Z that. Sort of creates like extra added texture, and you just don't need very much of it. And then if there's bits you're not happy with, you can use the smooth brush. And I just want to kind of make this look a little bit non-perfect. Okay, so that's looking okay. And then we go out of sculpting back into layout, and we're going to call that done. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and then I'm going to create a directory. It's a bit weird, the Blender file view. It's going to look a bit odd to you because you won't recognize it. So I'm going to go onto Google Drive, My Drive. I think I've called Donut folder, and I'll just create a new folder in here, and I'm going to call this tutorial folder. I'm going to go in there, and then I'm going to call this Donut 01. Okay, so I can come back to it, and if I make any massive mistakes, then I can always come back and change things. Okay, so that's the end of this tutorial.